The Craig Ferguson Pants on Fire tour is on sale now. It's a new show, it's new material, but I'm afraid it's still only me, Craig Ferguson, on my own, standing on a stage, telling comedy words. Come and see me. Buy tickets. Bring your loved ones. Or don't come and see me. Don't buy tickets and don't bring your loved ones. I'm not your dad. You come or don't come, but you should at least know it's happening. And it is. The tour kicks off late September and goes through the end of the year and beyond. Tickets are available at thecraigfergusonshow.com/tour. They're available at thecraigfergusonshow.com/tour or at your local outlet in your region. My name is Craig Ferguson. The name of this podcast is Joy. I talk to interesting people about what brings them happiness. On the podcast today, for my money, one of the most interesting and different and talented American performers to emerge in the last 20 years. She's really thoughtful, clever, interesting, talented. Well, you're going to find all of this out. It's Rachel Bloom. May I compliment you, first of all, on your background, which is amazing. And also the fact that you are dealing with a young child right now, and you look fresh and young and upbeat and lovely, and I'm jealous.
Well, I slapped on some makeup just before I came on here, and I had a glass of wine last night, which to me is 6 glasses of wine because I have no tolerance. So that means a lot that I look fresh.
No, you look great. And listen, I know what it's like to have a little kid. It's, my God. Every time I see people I'm in a hotel right now. When I see people in hotels with little kids, I always say, is anybody getting any sleep? And everybody always like, no.
It's all encompassing. She was at a sleepover last night. So it was nice to go out and come home and to be like, oh my God, there's no one, I don't have to care for anyone in this house. I mean, that sounds very mean because I still have a husband and a dog, but to not be responsible for someone's life for one night. Because even when you're off the clock, you're on the clock.
I was going to say, you probably woke up panicked in the middle of the night.
It was weird.
Yeah, I know. I've done it myself. Hey, here's what I have to tell you. I'm a little angry. I'm a little angry at you.
Oh, okay.
All right.
I'll take it.
Because I'm watching Death Let Me Do My Special. And you shouldn't make people cry and be scared in stand-up comedy. That's not stand-up comedy. I was scared. I had no idea. Like, when the death thing started, I'm like, this is fucking with me, man. I don't like it.
Yeah.
And did the audience know that was going to happen?
No. It really fucked with people when we started trying it out, it was called like, Rachel tries some new stuff out and sees what happens. So people really had no idea. And then of course, the country we live in, we kept cutting down the time that we revealed it was a plant so that people wouldn't be worried for their lives. Because the second you hear someone say I'm death, you're like, well, what? So that was also like,
thought of that.
Yeah. So that was also like, okay, the second we're going to hear him heckle, but the second he says I'm deaf, let's get him on mic. So something's up.
Yeah.
So that was something we worked on, but it fucked with people. And then when we called the show Death Let Me Do My, people still thought it was, real, but they knew something would be off about the show, but they thought it was real. And then they grew to not trust anything in the show to the point where I had actual weird things happen in the show and a couple of actual hecklers. People assumed it was built in.
That's kind of great though, isn't it? I mean, even I first became aware of your work with Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, like most people, I think. And I always thought, like, I remember the first episode of that show going, the fuck is happening? And then it took me, and I love that. It reminded me of, you ever seen the movie Trainspotting?
No.
All right. Well, you should see it because
yes.
you'd really like it. It's an upbeat tale of heroin addiction in Edinburgh in the 1990s.
Oh, you know what? I saw it a long time ago. Yes.
There's a scene in that movie where Ewan McGregor, as a drug addict, drops a vial of heroin, kind of
anal heroin input thing down a public bathroom, and it's disgusting, but he knows the only way he can get the heroin is put his hand into the horrible toilet to get the heroin. And then when he goes into the toilet, he goes all the way into the toilet, and he's swimming in this beautiful ocean in this toilet, and they play Brian Eno's Deep Blue Sea, and it's so beautiful. And when I saw Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, I thought, whatever MacGuffin in the head of Irvin Welsh that created that story, you have that too. You know, that.
Oh, well, thank you. That's a big, and I didn't even need heroin.
Well, what I'm saying to you is maybe it's time, as your daughter gets a little older, maybe you start thinking about heroin, especially when she's on a sleepover. Yeah. That would be the time.
That's the one.
That's the time to do it. But it's an interesting thing because I was very taken with the special. I don't.
Oh, that means a lot. I really obviously love you and respect you. That means a lot to me.
Oh my God, no! It's fantastic. Anyone who fucks with a genre that is tired anyway, stand-up comedy. There's too many people doing it. It's like everybody's playing C, F, and G on the guitar. It's like stop it. And then somebody comes along and throws in a huge minor chord and a 5/8 drum thing, and suddenly the whole world opens up again. And I'm now enthusiastic again about stand-up comedy, and you have no idea how jaded I am. That suddenly you see somebody doing it, and you go, fuck, there's more room. Again, somebody's breaking it again. It's great.
Oh, that really means a lot to me. Thank you.
Well, it's the truth. And you paid a high fucking price for it, though.
Yeah.
When you talk about the death of Adam in the show, that to me it's such a weird twist on the. I don't mean, is it stand-up comedy? Is that what it is?
It's like stand-up. I always say it's a stand-up show wrapped in a storytelling show, wrapped in a one-act play, kind of. So it's kind of veers more into storytelling as it gets, especially when I get into just like, all right, my character is talking about this for the first time, right? So it's like, okay, let's just go day by day, what happened. And then you're in real storytelling where it's like, all right, I'll just tell you about this terrible week where I gave birth, my friend died. And so like, that's where it gets very storytelling in that granularness.
It's a very kind of horribly convenient for story thing to event. I mean, it's a cataclysmic kind of, because I've had friends die, obviously everyone has, and I've been at 2 live births, both of my children. My God, they're so weird.
They're so weird.
It's like that weird kind of energy, like somebody's coming. Is that freaky?
And it's bloody, and there's nothing else in life that's a central life event where it's also going to be gory.
Yeah.
Unless you have really good birthday parties, I guess. But it's like gruesomeness is part of it. And so you're already in this very fleshy, bloody place that feels very primal.
And there's poop too. Let's be honest, there's poop.
You know what? I'm astounded. With me, there wasn't poop. But
stop! You're amongst friends, of course.
Maybe there was. No one told me. I didn't smell it.
They're being nice to you. There's poop.
Maybe. I would have been fine if there were. But yeah, no, there's everything. I mean, and there was my husband was trying not to look, but there was a mirror on the other side of the room where you could see everything. And I didn't really see the birth because everyone was blocking it. But after she was born and they took her to the NICU and the placenta was still in, I caught a glimpse of open wound placenta umbilical cord. It's weird.
It's unbelievable, isn't it?
It's crazy.
And it changed everything. I mean, clearly for a mother, it is physically an astonishing, change. But everything in my life changed. My entire perspective of the world changed when I became a father. And
Yeah.
I hear people say, oh, yeah, like not having kids. And I'm like, fine, that's your choice. It's fine. It's okay. But I always say, that all the great philosophers in history, none of them had children. That's actually, no, it's not true. But I say it to people because I want to shame them. But what I think it is everything, that people say that there's lazy assumptions that I think I made before I had kids. One of them was, people say that thing, well, we were born alone and we die alone. And I've been at 2 live births. And as far as I can tell, nobody is born alone. There's at least 2 people in the room.
Yes,
nobody's born alone. It's utter bullshit. And I just, everything about my perspective in life started to change a lot after my first son was born. It was weird. Is that what's happening to you?
100%. I mean, I say a little in the special where, ever since I've given birth, a story of a child being hurt anywhere messes with me. I got into it a little bit. Basically, yeah, like it kind of makes sense. I know it's not technically true that like philosophers, all the great philosophers didn't have kids, because before you have kids, there is an impartiality that you can have on the world. There's a moral impartiality that you can have. There's this scene in the HBO show, The Last of Us. I don't know did you watch it?
I did. I love that show. Yeah.
So remember when it's like someone basically turns in the head of this rebel alliance in exchange for cancer medication for his brother. And he's like, I wanted to prevent a child from dying. And Melanie Linsky's character goes, children die. Children die literally all the time. This wasn't worth it. And before you have a kid, you can say that, right? There's a certain amount you can zoom out from the world and look at history and say, yeah, well, life is gruesome, life is horrible. And I had such a strong stomach for true crime. I went to the Museum of Death. I was going to say, I went to the Museum of Death in LA, where it's the most gruesome crime scene photo. And it's just, you're like, yeah, that is what it is. And then I had a kid, and it just blew that wide open. It's so much harder to be impartial because you would do anything for this kid. Yeah. And would I turn in the founder of a rebel alliance to get my child cancer treatment? Fuck yeah. Yes. In an absolute second. So you're led by your heart and emotion. And now the media that I can consume has not completely, but it's really, really done an almost 180. Where that's exactly the same. I'm just so much more sensitive and empathetic, but like in a painful way. Yeah, I mean, I used to watch British detective shows about, crumbly detectives, and they have this thing going on with a lot of British detective shows. There's the murder of a child, and I was like, I can't do it. I'm not, or a child is even missing. Maybe the child's going to be okay, but you don't know about the child missing. That's enough. I don't want to see it. And it is an odd thing, and it's not because I don't know it happens. I was able to consume that media before, like you say, but it's because I can't stand it. It's not entertainment. All it does is make me feel awful all the time. Yeah, it's not even making me think in the way that darker shit used to make me like, okay, this is dark, but like, okay, it's teaching me a lesson. I'm so consumed by the emotion. I'm like, I'm not learning a lesson from this right now. Yeah. It's funny that as well, I think even when I have dark thoughts about my own mortality, and I thought, well, I better not die now, because that would really upset the kids. Yeah. It's like, I'll be fine, but whatever happens to me, but I would be really, you start to have this narrative of like, oh yeah, sometimes when I get on a plane alone, and I'm like, oh, this is the movie in my daughter's life where it's the last time she saw her mom. Oh, I do it all the time. And right, because they do that in so many, where it's like, oh, this is the last time, and this is the story she's going to tell herself now, where it's like, goodbye, I'm going to Vegas. And then it's like, and I never saw her again.
So you're telling me you left your daughter to go to Vegas? What age is this little girl?
I did go to Vegas alone a couple weeks ago. That is true.
Did
For a
you
night.
really?
I did. There was a convention of skeptics, and my friend was speaking at it, and I went for literally a night.
First of all, I have to take you back.
Yeah.
Because I need to know what happens at a convention of skeptics and why they would meet in Las Vegas to gamble. That seems like a contradiction.
Okay, so as far as I can tell, Vegas is just where you meet because they have good convention centers, and it's not even somewhat central. It's still West Coast. I don't know. But it was a convention for the Center for Inquiry held at the Horseshoe, Las Vegas. And it was just a bunch of panels and speeches about science and skepticism. And I'm really, really into this. And I'm a big old skeptical atheist. And it was like absolutely my jam. And my friend Rena was there speaking about, she's really, really good. She's actually a book called The Gospel of Wellness that's awesome about the pseudoscience of the wellness industry and why we turn to pseudoscience, and why even now with all the information on the internet, people are still so mired in false truths. And also,
have you ever read The Demon Haunted World?
Yes, I have.
It's a fantastic book, isn't it?
It's unbelievable.
Carl Sagan's The Demon Haunted World, for those of it who haven't read it.
And I still think about the thing he says, which is, when people talk about, and this is more about paranormal phenomena, but he's like, all right, so imagine you're in a house, you're looking at a glass sliding door, and there's a fireplace behind you during the day. You would see the backyard during the day. The sun starts to set. Suddenly what you see is the reflection in the glass of the fireplace behind you, but you've been looking out the window all day, so it just looks like suddenly there's a fire outside. And he compares that to the way as our brain tricks us into thinking we might be seeing things that aren't there and hearing things that aren't there. I still use that as an example. There's a quote that he does at the start of the book, which I think is fantastic. He's talking about a taxi driver that he gets who's asking him about, so where is Atlantis? You're Carl Sagan, where's Atlantis? And he's like, dude, I don't know what you're talking about. The city under the sea. And he's like, I'm. But he goes into a quote from Leon Trotsky, who, to be honest, not my favorite guy in the world, but Leon Trotsky is talking about the rise of the Nazis in Germany. And he's talking about, I'm paraphrasing it until the end. I only remember the end, but the paraphrasing that Trotsky says, they have pilots who wear amulets to give them good luck while they have, while they pilot these magnificent machines of engineering. And he talks about all these different people who do superstitious things while doing very scientifically advanced things. And then this is the thing that he zeroes in to make it about the rise of the Nazis. He says this quote, which I still find chilling. He says about human beings, what remarkable reserves they possess of darkness, ignorance, and savagery. Yeah. And I was like, whoa. And I feel like that's accurate even now. We have remarkable amounts of darkness, ignorance, and savagery. People are very on fire right now. Oh, it's all, I mean, we weren't, to put it bluntly, to make me sound like I'm 90, we weren't ready for the internet.
No,
we just weren't.
I don't think anyone's ready. I'm not ready for it now.
I'm not ready because it takes advantage of tribalism, which is in us. Like, I think, I might be wrong, but I feel like I read somewhere the reason Homo sapiens is the dominant, the only dominant kind of species of our kind is because we just killed everyone else. Because it was, the Neanderthals were wiped out.
We killed the I think that I also heard, that same study though, I also heard that we actually just shagged the Neanderthals and we're all like, their genes stopped coming through and everybody got their sex on and the humans came through more, Homo sapiens came through more than Neanderthals. But I might have just been looking at a completely erroneous report. Or
maybe it's a beautiful mix.
I think it might be a little bit of both, a little of column A, a little of column B. But let me take you back to Las Vegas because it's important to me, because I don't think I know enough about skeptics, modern skepticism, and I would like you to take me through it.
Well, I think it's still finding of what is it generationally now, because I would say it was overwhelmingly a lot of people who were Gen X or boomers. And there's a lot of skepticism that's still about UFO paranormal debunking because it's very much in conversation with like new age stuff that came about in like the 60s, the 70s, right?
Right.
So UFOs are less of a thing now, but if you were born in the 50s, you know, Roswell, like there's so much about that aspect of the paranormal that they're still debunking, which is very interesting. But I think what was really cool about this is my friend Rena and some other people spoke more about taking a skeptic lens into health trends and into there was this really, really interesting speech, I forget who it was, of this journalist comparing Gwyneth Paltrow goop culture of that kind of pseudoscience, like put this jade egg up your vagina.
Thank you for saying it. I noticed that as well.
Yeah. So there's a lot of parallel with that, with what's going on with now the manosphere. I don't know if you've heard about the manosphere, which is like, it's like, I feel like Joe Rogan's like kind of a part of this where it's just like all of these things you can do to make yourself as manly as you can. Like people are drinking their piss. There's this one guy who's like people are fully drinking their own fermented piss because they're like, this will make you like manly. And it's also why it kind of goes into people are chewing really tough gum to get a chiseled jaw. Like that's a big thing now, to like look as manly as possible. And it's just the kind of flip of the Gwyneth Paltrow stuff where it's like pseudoscience-y stuff to be the best that you can be and be the most of your, I don't know. It's all about like primal, right? Like let's go back to being a man. Like there are these influencers who are like, I only eat raw meat. And look at me, wow. I'm fucking shredded. And then it turns out he's doing a lot of steroids.
I only eat raw meat and steroids.
Yeah, exactly. But it's the same thing where it's on the female pseudoscience end where it's like, you know, I only eat grass and spring water. Also, I can afford a trainer 6 times a week.
Yeah.
So that's probably the bigger thing.
But that does not play into archetypes. Those things play into archetypes of aesthetics as well. Like if a square jaw makes you more manly, but you know, David Bowie was a man. Andy Warhol is a man. Arnold Schwarzenegger is a man. You know, there are men who look different. I mean, I guess it's like to look like a cartoon man, maybe.
It's to be, I think it also relates to a lot of the cultural thing of like men need to assert themselves, men need to be masculine. It's a thing that's I think more on the what you would call the right, although I don't even know what that means anymore. But the idea of like men need to be men and women need to be women, and the world will be more organized once men are empowered again to embrace their true power and potential, as opposed to the journalist was like, as opposed to me, he's like, I'm a soy boy beta cuck. He's like, I'm their nightmare. So it's like whatever. Like, I guess they would consider David Bowie a soy boy beta cuck.
See, that's interesting because my definition of masculinity is like aspirational masculinity for me as a man is individualism, is fuck you. You know, this is how we all have to be. Fuck you, it's how we have to be. This is how I am. You know, so if I'm and you're labeled beta cuck, fuck your beta cuck label. I'm a man. You know, and I kind of, I don't like to allow people who have a different view of the world than me to give me a name that I then have to adopt.
Oh.
You know.
That's all the internet is.
Yeah, I know.
All the internet is people giving other people names.
If you have that you have to take. And I think if you have a name, if no matter what part of the spectrum you're on, the political sphere you're on, if you have a name for a group of other people, you need to take a fucking look at yourself.
Yeah.
Because people are people. And I think that's what fascinates me, is that I always thought the internet was a bit like show business, that it's only dangerous if you take it seriously, you know. But
yeah,
if you take it seriously, it can kill you.
You know, I really love on Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, we did a whole story about a character getting sober, and we actually watched some of your work in the room. You did a great monologue. It was when Britney Spears was really having her meltdown, and because we were talking about what you learn in AA and to be non-judgmental and how in that you were saying, like, I don't want to say she's not. I don't judge. I don't want to say what she is, and I just love. I don't know. I really see that kind of non-judgmental space in what you're saying right now, and it's just really cool. It's really cool to see like evolved recovery and how it continues to clearly like affect your worldview in all sorts of awesome ways.
I think that the idea of it. Thank you, but I think the idea of it is that the idea of evolution. I think has. It's interesting, you know, people say that the evolution, and I think this is part of this masculine thing right now, that, you know, the strongest survive. And that's not true. The strongest don't survive. Mammoths are plenty strong. Saber-toothed tigers, strong. You know, it's not about strong. It's those who adapt survive. If you can adapt to the changing environment, you survive. And so I think that if you extrapolate those that adapt survive, then the intelligent survive. That's an optimistic worldview, I know. But I think that I feel like, you know, Hannah Arendt, was it Hannah Arendt said, for evil to triumph good, you know, even once, something good. If evil had triumphed even once, good wouldn't exist, or something like that. I don't know if that was her or it was someone else. I mean, she said a lot of very clever things. And, but so have a lot of other people.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know. You know better than me if that was her. But yeah, that's a really good. Has anyone else made that point?
I'm sure they must have.
I'm sure you're not the first person to point out that adaptation is actually a better quality than just brute strength. Because yeah, like the reason that mammals became superior and that there was like mammalian supremacy in the first place is because when the asteroid hit and killed off the dinosaurs, all these little moles were living underground. Right. And so that's why now we're here. And that's why mammals rose to the top. Without that, who the fuck knows where we'd be? We'd all be, you know, feathered bird lizard people.
You know, I've had a few nights.
Yeah. I was also going to say, if you ask certain corners of the internet, they'll say, well.
Okay.
A lot of people
That's fine. I don't know. I mean, I think it's quite interesting because it also depends on your idea of what success is. Like, is your success as a species, is it numbers? Is it sheer numbers? Because if it is, ants win, you know, or is it intelligence? Is it a soul? Is there a soul? I mean, what do the skeptics say about the soul? Is there a soul?
I mean, I think that the skeptics it's all about kind of always searching. That's the thing that I always take from the skeptic community is it's always searching for the truth. So soul, no, I mean, there's never been any, it's all evidence-based, right? So there's never really been any evidence of a soul. A lot of what you're saying also, the keynote speaker the night I was there was Neil deGrasse Tyson. And a lot of what you're saying is exactly what he was saying. He's like, all right, so if aliens came and they wanted to talk to you know, the smartest animal, how would they gauge that? We don't have the biggest brains of any animal on Earth. And he started to go through, what are the animals with the biggest brains? And he's like, okay, well, let's say we're looking at brain to body ratio. We're not the animals even with the, you know, biggest brain to body ratio. And so he's really started breaking it down about how objectively unspecial human beings are. If you were an alien species looking down at us, and that was his whole talk was kind
there's
of
a great
zooming
counter
out.
to that, though.
Yeah, please.
Louis C.K. has a great counter to that, which is humans remove themselves from the food chain. So that's pretty impressive. Like, for most of history, humans died like but that doesn't happen really anymore. It's a different. No, we're perfectly capable of destroying ourselves, but it's, you know. And then actually, if you think about it, maybe we didn't. I mean, look at COVID, for example, with Adam. You know, it's like fucking plague comes, it comes. So maybe that's not true.
There's nothing you can do. It's why. What is it? Is the movie The Sword and the Stone? There's a it's it's animated movie. It's King Arthur and Merlin. There's a wizard fight, and the way the wizard fight culminates, I want to say, is they're like turning into one's a dragon, the other turns into a bear, and finally Merlin disappears and he's become a virus.
Oh.
And he just gets the other wizard very sick because he's like, this is actually the most powerful thing.
Yeah, and maybe
virus.
that, like The Last of Us, when they do that the beginning of it, when they're doing that show about fungus in the 1970s.
That was such a good cold open to acknowledge.
Oh my
hey, I know
God.
we're in a pandemic, but there's actually something worse. That was a really chilling way to open a show.
How do you deal with that now that, I mean, I tell you what I'm leading up to. I had to adapt my entire Weltanschauung. My entire worldview had to change when I became a parent, because now there was someone who mattered more than my feelings on earth. And it continued with my second child. And I think that it led me in a very different path that I'd been to before. I was very evidence-based right up until I became a parent. And now I'm on a deep dive right now with the early Christian mystics and the Moses and his gang. And I mean, it's like I'm off on all sorts of adventures with those people now. And Pythagoras, who was like a real, and Gore Vidal's historical novels, which if you haven't read them, oh my God, have you done any of those?
No.
Oh, you have
I'll
to.
put it on my list now.
Oh my God, it's amazing. But I became much more interested in the unevident, in the lack of evidence than in the evidence. And I think it came from that moment of being at my first live birth, apart from my own, which I don't remember. But that weird moment where it all there's no words for it. I don't even think there's just some kind of weird gap in the universe, and then somebody new's there, and it freaked me out. It had a profound effect on me, and I am no longer evidence based.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
I think. So I'm not there. I think that I see it more as my emotions and my empathy have been just cracked open in a way that makes it very hard for me to be totally objective and totally impartial. But for me, I guess the thing with looking for evidence-based stuff, and this might just be really personal to me, is the part of the reason I'm interested in all of it, in skepticism and the search for the truth, is I want someone to find the proof of the mystic. And that's what I'm looking for, right?
I know.
I'm looking for, when I read the what is it? I read this woman named Mary Roach, who writes amazing books. I read was it Stiff or Spook? She's written 2 books about death and the search for the afterlife. I read that stuff because I'm like, maybe this will be the thing that proves it. Which is very, I think, not everyone, but it's why I like the skeptic area. Is from a very young age, I knew that I kind of liked this area, but also I didn't want to believe in things that weren't true. So this is the way I split the difference. Because what's funny, my own therapist, I was talking to her about my interest in this, and she goes, she's like, I don't really believe in this stuff. She's like, I'm an atheist. She's like, I just don't think about this stuff. You really have a thing where you want to immerse yourself in this skepticism, paranormal investigation, where she's like, I just don't think about it. I just think ghosts aren't real and that's it. And so I don't know what it is, but there is something in me that I love reading studies of things that can't be studied, because maybe this will be the thing that proves it.
But that's a beautiful mind to have. That I think is a spiritual hunger, which is was my own particular brand. I don't know if I was ever an atheist. I think I probably was at one point, and I'm certainly not a flag waving, drum beating, organized religion person. I'm not good at joining groups of people. I couldn't even join in a group of late night hosts, and there was only like 7 of us. So I don't want to be part of your fucking gang. It's like there's only enough for a dinner party. Like, I don't fucking care. But I think that it's funny. I was talking to a friend of mine today about that very thing. Atheism is too fundamental a stance for me. I can't do it. It believes in itself too much, and fundamentalism. I can't do fundamentalism. It doesn't seem hungry enough.
I think this is where you get into the idea of atheism being a form of spirituality is controversial. But when I really kind of became an atheist, what it actually meant for me was really what I would say is I'm a practical atheist, theoretical agnostic. I live my life as if there's nothing, as if no one's looking out. If I fuck up, it's not the universe teaching me a lesson. It's like, no, maybe I just fucked up and I have to apologize to someone. Mm-hmm. But I'm practically agnostic in that I think it's something like 98% of the universe is dark matter, and we don't know what dark matter is. So no, you can't be like there's nothing when there's so much we don't know. It's just the way I live my life on a practical level is as if there's nothing, and very evidence-based. But there's a part of me that is very open to wonder and wants to remain open to wonder. So whatever that means, I don't know if that's, pure atheist. I'm sure there are some people who are like, well, then you're not an atheist. I don't know what that means, but that's how my brain, this is what I think makes me the best version of myself. Whatever you'd call this, what I'm doing. Yeah.
I think that if you're talking about, we talked earlier about the lessons of sobriety or recovery. And if there's one thing I learned that I think has been pivotal for me in this, and it sounds like you are capable, not capable, you do this too, and at a far younger age than I ever got hold of it, was it seems to me that most people are not willing to make themselves the villain of their own story.
Yeah.
Everyone, and I am willing to do that. I want to go, look, this person may have fucked up, but I fucked up too, and I really try to live my life like that. Like, okay, whatever they did, that's not important. What did I do? Because that's the only thing I can do anything about.
Yeah.
I can't do anything about what they did, but I can do something about what I did. And if it means I have to try and, make amends or not do it again or whatever it was, then I do that, But I think accountability is something that can be lost if you're not worried about the accounts being settled in some way. And I'm not worried about that. But you see where I'm kind of like edging towards this?
I get it. I have so many other parts of me that want to be a good person that have nothing to do with heaven.
Oh, I agree. I don't mean that. I don't mean like getting the books right so you get into heaven. I mean getting the idea that there is a I don't want to get to one of the, I'm not saying, oh, well, if you don't believe in God, you're going to run around killing people. That's nonsense. But what I mean is, it helps, I don't know, it helps me imagine that there may be something.
Yeah.
But I absolutely reject the didactic nature of stand up, sit down, turn around, eat this, don't eat this, wear this, don't wear this, tell these other people they've got it wrong. I reject all of that. The organized part of religion, if you like.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting question of, and one that I'm still trying to figure out for my own family of, okay, if you live your life not religiously, where does a moral compass come from? Where do you get a sense of right and wrong? And do you need God for a sense of right and wrong? For me, I don't know if you do. I think that we just have so many societal structures that are set up. You have thousands of years of people philosophizing and thinking of morality in the context of different spiritualities. And a lot of it is not, and very little moral compass that we're kind of taught that isn't based in some sort of spirituality. So I'm still navigating, okay, how do you teach someone a sense of right and wrong? And maybe spirituality isn't involved. But at the same time, like, just from an objective perspective, like, it's not like religion is useless to me. Religion is people for thousands of years ideating on the human condition. That in itself is so incredibly profound.
It's a lot to throw out in one thing.
And I don't want to do that, but I think that that's a real debate. And it's what a lot of religious people would say, well, when you take religion out of society, you miss a moral compass. And I don't think that's necessarily the case, but that is a debate of what do you ground yourself in?
I guess there are people who, if they, I'm not one of them. I don't think you're one of them, but maybe there are people who, if they didn't have their accounts to settle in heaven, they would run around killing people, and that's the reason why they don't. So,
which is so scary. Which is so.
It's terrifying. But
I am so less scared of the idea of someone going around who doesn't murder people, who. If you really press them, they'd be like, no, I could murder someone and get away with it. I just don't want to murder people. That scares me a lot less than someone who's like, oh boy, if there weren't God, I would be killing everyone. That's horrifying.
Yeah, it is a horrifying thing. I don't think there's that many of those, though.
I don't think there's that many, but all you need is a few to be, serial killers.
Well, there's that, but then you get the people who are like, oh, well, I got to kill these people because God wants me to. There's those people too.
Well, and they're taking that, and they're taking out whatever is messed up in their head, But
that's
for them, it's righteousness. Yeah, I mean, this is stuff that I'm actively thinking about and going through, especially since having a kid.
I know.
But for me, I guess like what guides my moral compass is, what is going to cause, how do you spread joy, not pain? How do I not cause pain? Even though at the center of life is pain. I mean, something that I've been really thinking about lately is the way that living beings survive is to consume other living beings. Even if you're a vegetarian, you're eating plants. Plants are alive. So that's weird that if this were a moral, just world, the fact that not only are we supposed to eat things that are alive to survive, but that then everything alive has pain receptors. And even plants have a way of sending out distress pulses, right? So even though that fundamental of life to me seems really morally contradictory, I'm just trying to cause people the least amount of pain as possible. And Patton Oswalt has a great special. I don't know if you saw it, shortly after his wife died.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And she says, and she was, I think, very much what sounds like an atheist or agnostic. And she just always said, it's chaos, be kind. And I still think about that sometimes. I think that's such a beautiful way to view the world and kind of how I see the world, where it's like, it's just chaos, just be kind.
I feel like that is it. That's the only way to. It's hard to be kind when I think it's easy. For me, I find it easy to be kind when people are worthy of pity. But when they're worthy of anger, it's harder for me to be kind to people I feel angry with. It's much more of a challenge. And people that I don't necessarily love or love how they live. It's tricky.
Oh, I'm the most petty, vindictive I am so I'm not an aggressive driver, but I'm a judgmental driver. Where if someone doesn't signal or cuts me off, I'll be like, what do you to the point where my 4-year-old has heard me criticize people enough that she's like, Mama, you should have your own driving school where people can learn how to drive like you. And I was like, you know what? They should. So
that is a great idea.
I was like, that's really, and so now, but now it's become kind of in our family a running joke of my kind of Soviet re-education camp, where I force people to learn about all sorts of different polite things that we've forgotten in society, like no cutsies is really important to me.
Very.
So I'm, as much as I want to spread kindness, I'm also very petty.
I think maybe you're just human, and we're all a duality. I always circle right back around. I seem to always come back around to Carl Jung. Every time I wander off in any direction, any other direction, I come back to Carl Jung, who seemed to kind of grab it all all into one place, mysticism and science, and and the human experience. I really kind of get that. You ever read any or have you ever come across the Red Book or anything like that?
No, it's been a minute actually. I did weirdly read a lot of Freud in school,
right.
And so I'm behind on my Jung.
It's funny, Freud. I mean, obviously, an innovator.
So many holes to poke.
Yeah, a little
I just
bit.
weirdly, I took a class in Freudian psychoanalysis for some reason in school, and then I had my first therapist was a therapist who was then training in psychoanalysis, so I know a lot more about the kind of almost simplistic Freudian view of things than I do about the Jungian view. It's on my to-do list.
Well, they famously kind of split up. It was a real
yes.
John Lennon, Paul McCartney moment with those two. But I veer towards Jung. I can't make Freud work for me much. But the discovery of things is important, and he did discover a lot of techniques. He moved things forward. He wasn't the be all and end all, but
no, and he didn't believe in clits.
Yeah, that's a real.
No, it's a whole. There's a really fucked up story. It was a story from like the 1920s. There's this princess. She was like a grandniece of Napoleon Bonaparte. She was very rich, and she got in with Freud, and she was obsessed her whole life that she'd never had a vaginal orgasm. And Freud was like, agreed, like, because he basically believed that clitoral orgasms, which is scientifically where all orgasms come from in the woman,
right.
Were immature. And so this woman had numerous, this is in like the 1920s, surgeries to try to make her vagina closer to her clitoris. And this was all urged on by Sigmund Freud. It's nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. So there was a lot of bullshit.
You've talked a little bit in your life about mental health and kind of dealing with your own struggles. I mean, as I have myself, I've talked a lot. But like when I got sober, I thought everyone was going to be great. It didn't really work out that way. I mean, it's kind of an ongoing struggles to. It requires vigilance. Do you still find yourself in that place today? Do you still kind of?
It's a journey. It's a journey I'll never be over. Because there's two things. There's my own mental health, and then, the mental health of others. And I've dealt with people close to me going through mental health issues, and okay, how much do you help? Where do you put up boundaries?
It's hard.
And that's you can only control what you can control. But no, it's an ongoing thing, especially as just the world continues to get more complicated. Not only becoming a parent, but as frankly the internet gets scarier and weirder and weirder. Like I'm never gonna be like, yeah, I got nothing else to solve with my mental health.
This is why when you said that thing about the internet and the world getting weirder and stuff, I feel this is why. I mean, people that listen to this podcast are probably sick of me hearing it, sick of me saying it, but that's why I get so obsessed with these Gore Vidal historical novels. Julian the Apostate, Creation, the 7 narratives of empire that you wrote about the United States from the Revolution till the 1950s. It's fascinating because it's always been a shit show, Rachel. It's always been a shit show. And he makes it personal so that you believe it's not distant. It's like real people, 500 years BC. You believe it. It's like someone's got an iPhone and showing you around.
Oh, I've got to get into these.
You have to, because it's FaceTiming your way into the past. He was a fucking genius, Vidal. I met him towards the end of his life, and I hadn't read a thing he had written at that point. And I feel like I really missed an opportunity to, I don't know, grovel or something. I don't know that it would have made any difference to him, but his work is unbelievable. He's an unsung American genius. I know a lot of people are into him, but he should be far more to the forward of thinking.
No, that's very calming to me. Just hearing you say it's always been a shit show is really, it's fucked up, but I find that really calming. I
find it too. Me too.
This is life. Life is, and I think coming up during the 90s, which people called the end of history, right? There was something about like, well, we're finished. Nothing else to see here. Nothing else to do here, which was kind of the narrative of, I don't know. I think maybe a child's perceived narrative of the late 90s. And then being launched into this century with anything but calm. Just to remember, like, no, it's actually chaos is the norm.
Totally.
It's calm.
Look, the United States, Aaron Burr shoots and kills Alexander Hamilton and goes on trial while he's still the vice president, goes to New Orleans, tries to raise an army to become the emperor of fucking Mexico, right? This is all going on. What we've got right now is kind of mid-range crazy.
Wow. I didn't know about the Emperor of Mexico thing.
Oh, girl, he was fucking nuts. And then, don't get me started on Thomas Jefferson, how crazy that fucking shit was. And then and Burr was Jefferson's vice president.
Of course, yeah.
Oh my God. And then McKinley getting shot at the start of the 20th century, and Teddy Roosevelt, who was his vice president, coming in, and all that crazy shit that was going on. William Randolph Hearst getting blamed for inciting the assassination of McKinley and losing his chance of ever becoming president, which is what he really wanted.
Holy shit.
And when you read about these people, you go, oh, well, that's Elon Musk, that's Donald Trump,
right.
That's Hillary, they're all over the place. I mean, Mark Twain gets the credit for saying this. I don't know if he said it or not, which is kind of ironic because it makes sense with the quote. Apparently, he said, "History does not repeat itself, but it rhymes."
Yes, I love that quote.
And I think that that's the way. I find it very comforting in well-researched, meticulously researched, genius-written historical fiction, but based in real fact.
Well, I gotta get into that because even though I'm not a mental health professional, I can't help but see people's unresolved issues and personality disorders everywhere. Right. And it's just like, oh yeah, that's the brain chemistry that's been fucking people up and causing dictators and wars for the past 10,000 years.
Totally. And
not to blame mental illness on people being bad, which is a whole other debate. I just want to say it's complicated.
Well, yeah, but there are things like, let's take Henry VIII, right? Henry VIII, who for a long time is like a fairly staid, nothing much going on monarch in England. Everything's pretty stable. Has a jousting accident. It won't heal. He starts getting a little crazy. He's putting on weight. Decides that, his wife of 20 years, it's her fault. And that whole period, his 6 wives of Henry, that's a 10-year period. That's it. That was the last 10 years of his life.
So it was like maybe concussion from a jousting accident or something.
I think it was.
That's really interesting.
They reckon he was probably type 2 diabetes. And he had all sorts of, for a while they thought it was syphilis, they thought it was something else, but it was certainly, there was a lot of his behavior was brought on by the physicality of his changing body, through the course of his life. And I think that, to come back to the Skeptics Conference a little bit, I think that's what people are looking for sometimes when they put the jade egg in the vagina or the fucking rub myself with cat feces in order to whatever the thing is. Please don't do any of those. But I think they're looking for a way to physically change how they feel. I did that with alcohol. I want to physically change how I feel. And, and some of it's beneficial if you run or you swim or you, do push-ups or something, then it's all right. But, I have to still say, though, the best thing I've come across is Percocet, hands down.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Yeah, you must never... And
I was going to say, do you still fuck with that or...
Oh, God, no. God,
Okay.
I can't go anywhere near that shit. But, no, that's the best. Legal heroin?
That I've never... that's the painkiller, right? That's if you get No, that I haven't messed with. I have to a way lesser level, an occasional Xanax is really a nice reset button, but that's not
I wish could do that.
That's more like a glass of wine that doesn't fuck me up the next day.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Not to sell. I'm trying to be like, no, you really got to try. You really got to try Xanax. Craig.
You know what? Let's take out all of these drug recommendations. Tomas, make a note of this. All of these drug recommendations have to go. I have to go myself. And so do you.
No, this was amazing. I'm honestly gonna read. That might be next on my reading list.
Oh, I can't recommend it highly enough. Start with either Julian the Apostate, Burr, or Creation.
Oh, okay, great.
They're all fabulous. It was great to talk to you. That special of yours is a fucking masterpiece. How dare you?
Thank you.
But other than that, I remain a fan.
Oh my God. Thank you. Same. You're the best. Thank you for having me.
God bless you. Talk soon.
Bye. Talk soon.